She called him 31 times. He watched every single one light up the screen and turned it face down. What Katek didn't know was that by the time he finally looked up, half of everything he loved was already gone. 11:48 p.m., the Velvet Room. Seoul's most untouchable private lounge. No address on Google, no sign on the door. Just two men in black outside a matte steel entrance who recognized power on sight and stepped aside without a word. Inside, Kai-tak sat at the head of a corner booth, like a king who'd forgotten he had a kingdom waiting at home. Kang Ki-tek, 38 years old. The man's soul's underground called Cheolman. The Iron Gate. He didn't run drugs, he didn't run guns. He ran something more dangerous: money, influence, silence. His name appeared on no government list, no police file, no public record. But three members of the National Assembly owed him favors they'd spend careers repaying. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's rent. His face was unreadable. The kind of still that came not from peace, but from years of training emotion out of himself like a weakness. Across from him sat Min Jisoo, not his wife. Jisoo was polished, calculated, and had been inserting herself into Ki-tak's world for 4 months. Not through seduction, but through usefulness. She brokered introductions. She solved problems before he named them. She made herself feel like oxygen, and Kai-tak, somewhere between the late-night strategy calls and the private dinners he told himself were business, had started breathing her in. His phone lit up on the table. Home. Incoming call. He glanced at it. 1 second, maybe 2. Then he turned it face down and refilled Jisoo's glass. Across the city, in their Seongbuk estate, his wife Olive, 32 years old, 34 weeks pregnant with twins, had just gripped the bathroom sink with both hands and screamed into silence. Nobody heard her. The contractions had started at 3 p.m. Olive had timed them, 12 minutes apart, then 8, then 5. She'd called Kai-tak's direct line at 6 p.m., calm, not wanting to alarm him. No answer. She called again at 7, at 8, at 9. By 9:40 p.m., the contractions were 3 minutes apart and she was bleeding. Olive Choi-kong was not a woman who panicked. She'd survived being a black woman in Seoul's elite circles for 6 years. She'd learned Korean in 14 months. She'd earned respect in rooms that hadn't wanted her there. She was the kind of woman who handled things, so she handled this. She called the estate driver, reassigned, to transport Kai-tak's guests. She called his assistant, voicemail. She called Kai-tak 31 more times. At 10:02 p.m., her water broke. She crawled to the bedroom, pulled towels from the linen closet, positioned herself against the bed frame, and did the only thing left. She survived. The paramedics arrived at 10:44 p.m. They found her on the floor, conscious, breathing, alone. She had delivered one baby herself, a girl, silent and small, wrapped in a bathroom towel. The second baby, a boy, was in distress. Cord-wrapped, oxygen cut. They rushed her to Seoul Central Hospital. The NICU team was waiting. The girl, breathing, fragile, critical. The boy, they worked on him for 19 minutes. He didn't make it. And at that exact moment, 10:58 p.m., Kai-tak was laughing at something Jisoo said. His phone face down on the velvet table, his glass half full, completely unaware that his son had just taken his first and last breath without his father in the room. Kai-tak arrived home at 3:52 a.m., still wearing the charcoal suit, still carrying the faint trace of Jisoo's perfume. The house was dark, not the comfortable dark of a sleeping home, the hollow dark of a space that had been emptied of something irreplaceable. He noticed the bathroom light first. He pushed the door open casually, already composing his apology. Something about the deal? Something about making it up to her tomorrow. Then he saw the floor, towels, blood, water. A phone cracked against the tile, screen still lit, showing his contact photo under the word husband. 31 outgoing calls. 0 answered. Kai-tak's body went cold in a way no winter ever managed. He called his assistant. Where is she? Seoul Central Hospital, sir. A pause. She was admitted at 10:45 p.m. That was 5 hours ago. Yes, sir. We tried to reach you, 14 attempts. He didn't respond. He was already moving. He drove to the hospital in 7 minutes, walked through the emergency doors at 4:03 a.m., still in his party suit, still smelling of whiskey and someone else's evening. The attending physician, Dr. Yoon, met him in the corridor. She didn't bow. She looked at him the way people look at wreckage. Mr. Kang, your wife delivered under emergency conditions tonight. Your daughter is in the NICU. Critical, but stable. Kai-taek's jaw tightened. And? Dr. Yoon's. Silence lasted 4 seconds. Your son did not survive. Cord compression, oxygen deprivation, by the time paramedics arrived? The hallway didn't spin. The lights didn't flicker. The world just kept going. And Kai-taek stood inside it, hollowed out completely. Still holding his phone, still showing 31 missed calls from the woman he had failed most. Where is my wife? Mrs. Kang is in recovery. She is conscious. Dr. Yoon paused. She has requested that you not be admitted to her room. The most feared man in Seoul's underground, a man who could open any door in this city with a single phone call, was standing in a fluorescent hospital corridor, being told he could not see his own wife. Not by security, not by law, by Olive herself. He didn't argue, didn't threaten, didn't use his name or his network. He sat down in a plastic chair outside her room and didn't move for 7 hours. At 6 a.m., a young nurse approached nervously. Mr. Kang, Mrs. Kang has authorized you to view your daughter through the NICU window. 15 minutes. You may not enter. 15 minutes. Through glass. He followed her upstairs. Through the reinforced window, he saw her, impossibly small inside a clear incubator, surrounded by wires and monitors, her tiny chest rising and falling with the rhythm of machines keeping her alive. His daughter, smaller than his forearm. Ki-taek placed his hand flat on the glass. He didn't cry. Men like him had been trained out of tears before adulthood. But something structural inside him, something load-bearing, cracked. And in the reflection of that NICU window, he saw himself clearly for the first time. Not the Iron Gate, not the broker of Seoul's shadow economy. Just a man in a wrinkled party suit pressing his hand against glass, begging to be let closer to the only thing that had ever truly belonged to him. When his 15 minutes ended, he walked back to that plastic chair. And he sat, and he waited. Because for the first time in his life, Kang Ki-taek had no move to make. On the third day, Olive spoke. Not to Ki-taek, to her attorney. Park Soo-yeon was known in Seoul's legal circles as the architect because she built custody arrangements like fortresses. Within 48 hours of delivery, Olive had contacted her. Not for divorce, not yet. For control. The one thing Kai-taek had stolen from her on the worst night of her life. Attorney Park sat across from Kai-taek in a hospital conference room and laid out 4 conditions. Non-negotiable. 1. All visits with your daughter are supervised. You appear personally or access is revoked. Kai-taek nodded. 2. Min Ji-soo has 0 contact with you, your household, or anything connected to Mrs. Kang or the child. Any verified breach resets all progress to 0. 3. Weekly counseling. Verified attendance, not optional. 4. You will not use your network, your influence, or your resources to accelerate or manipulate this process in any way. Kai-taek studied the document. Then he said something that surprised the attorney, surprised his own assistant standing by the door, and surprised himself. I agree. All of it. Attorney Park studied him. Mr. Kang, I've represented clients against men in your position for 18 years. They all agree quickly. The question is whether you'll still agree on week 5, when your pride starts screaming louder than your regret. Kai-taek looked at the document. Then I'll see you on week 5. If you were Olive, after everything, would you have even set conditions? Or would you already be gone? Drop your answer in the comments, because what Ki-taek does next, most men would never survive it. Every morning. 8 a.m. sharp. No driver, no entourage, no custom suit. Kitag came alone in simple clothes and stood at the NICU window for his 15 minutes like a man serving a sentence he knew he deserved. The staff recognized him. At first, they treated him the way the Whisper network had already judged him, the powerful man who abandoned his wife during labor. Nurses avoided eye contact. Doctors kept conversations clinical. He kept coming. He learned his daughter's oxygen levels, feeding schedule, weight chart. He asked the nurses questions, real questions, not commands, and listened to the answers. On day 11, the NICU head nurse, Sister Bora, 22 years on the ward, unimpressed by anyone, made a note in her report. Father demonstrates consistent, punctual presence. Respectful engagement with staff. No attempts to override protocol. That report reached Olive. She read it 3 times alone in her recovery room. She circled one word with a red pen. Consistent. It was the first time that word had ever applied to Kitek as a husband, and it cracked something small in the wall she was building. On week 3, she authorized physical contact, supervised 20 minutes, nurse present. The first time Kitek held his daughter, 4 pounds, 2 ounces, wires taped to her chest. His hands shook. This man who had signed billion-dollar contracts without a tremor, who had stared down rival organizations without blinking. His hands shook. He looked at her face and whispered in Korean, so quietly Sister Bora almost missed it. Appa mianhe. Daddy is sorry. Not for the cameras, not for Olive, not for anyone watching. Just for her. And that was the first honest thing Ki-taek had done in years. Nobody dangerous announces themselves. Min-ji-soo had been quiet for 6 weeks. Strategically quiet. She knew what had happened. Everyone in their circle did. But Jisoo wasn't concerned with judgment. She was concerned with position. She had spent 4 months building something with Ki-taek. Not a romance. An architecture. Introductions. Deals. Influence tied directly to his name. If he disappeared into guilt and fatherhood, everything collapsed. So she made a move. She contacted Chairman Baek, the man behind a coastal development deal worth $400 million that Ki-taek had paused. The deal doesn't wait forever, she told him over coffee. But I can keep the door warm until Ki-taek is ready to re-engage. What she was really doing, positioning herself as the bridge Ki-taek would have to cross to recover his empire, making herself necessary again. The message reached Ki-taek through his assistant. Chairman Baek insists you attend the signing dinner Friday. He wants you there personally, and sir, Jisoo structured it. She'll be there as the consortium's liaison. Cutting her out means killing the deal. Ki-taek was sitting in Olive's apartment, his first home visit, authorized under Fols 3. His daughter was asleep on his chest. He looked at her face, then at the small framed photo on the shelf. An ultrasound image. 2 babies, side by side. He looked at his assistant. Set up a private meeting with Chairman Baek. Before Friday, just the 2 of us. His assistant blinked. And the dinner? I'll be there, but we're rewriting the terms. Because this time, Ki-taek wasn't going to run from the crossroads. He was going to dismantle it. Thursday morning, no entourage, no performance. Ki-taek sat across from Chairman Baek in a quiet Gangnam office and said 4 sentences that rewired everything. Is Min-ji-soo essential to this deal? Or has she made herself appear essential? Baek leaned back slowly. She brokered the introductions. But our group respects you, Ki-taek, not her. Then I'm offering you a direct partnership. No intermediary. I'll match whatever margin she negotiated as a discount on your end. Cleaner deal, better terms. And neither of us answers to someone whose interests don't align with ours. Baek was quiet. Then, and Jisoo, she inserted herself into a gap between us. I'm closing the gap. By Thursday evening, the deal was restructured. Jisoo's role removed. No confrontation, no threats. Just surgical precision, used for the first time in Ki-taek's life for something that wasn't about ego. Friday night, he attended the signing dinner, arrived at 8 p.m., shook hands, closed the deal. At 9:10 p.m., While the celebration was just starting, he stood up. Gentlemen, thank you, but I have somewhere I need to be. He drove to Olive's apartment in Mapo-gu. She opened the door, surprised. It's not your scheduled night. I know. He held up a small bag. I brought the ginger tea from the Insadong shop. The one you like. He paused. And I thought, if you needed help with the 4 a.m. feeding, I could take the couch, if that's okay. Olive looked at the bag, looked at him, looked at the hallway behind her where one crib sat in soft lamplight. The couch is short, she said quietly. Your back will hurt. I know. She stepped aside. They never had a dramatic reconciliation scene. No speech, no rain, no single moment where everything was forgiven and the credits rolled. What they had was smaller and realer than that. They had 4 a.m. feedings where Katak learned that his daughter only settled when held on the left side, closer to the heartbeat. He learned it by trying, failing, and trying again until she stopped crying. He attended counseling every week. In session 9, his therapist pushed him to say the thing he'd buried. I stayed that night because with Jisoo, I didn't have to be responsible for anyone. Going home meant being a husband, and I didn't know how. I knew power, I knew fear, I knew control, but I didn't know how to just sit with someone in pain and stay. His voice cracked. She called 31 times because she still believed I'd answer, and I let her down, and my son died because I was too afraid to go home. On a quiet Saturday, they stood together in Namsan Park. Beneath a young maple tree, a small stone marker bore one name, Kong Seo Jun, their son. Olive placed white chrysanthemums at the base. Kai-tak placed a folded letter beside them, private between him and the boy he never held. Olive turned to him, her eyes clear, honest. I don't forgive you. I know. But I see what you've been doing every day. I see it. She paused. I'm not ready to be your wife again. Maybe I never will be, but I'm willing to raise her with you, not for you, for her. That's enough. And it was. 6 months later, their daughter took her first steps. 3 wobbly steps across the living room, straight into Kitaik's hands. She grabbed his face with both palms the way babies claim people as theirs. Olive laughed. Unguarded. Real? The first laugh that had nothing careful in it. Kitaik looked up from the floor, his daughter in his arms. She has your stubbornness. She has your ego, Olive replied. 3 steps and she already thinks she owns the room. Almost a joke. Almost warmth. And Kitaik, the man's soul once called the Iron Gate, smiled. Not for power. Not for anyone watching. Just because his daughter was in his arms and the woman across the room was smiling too. And for the first time in a long time, that was everything. Kaitek lost everything the night he turned that phone face down. But he earned something money could never buy. By showing up one day at a time, no guarantee it would ever be enough. If this story hit you somewhere real, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and drop one word in the comments describing Olive's strength. One word. Let's see what this community says. Next story, it starts exactly where the most dangerous love stories always do, with a lie told in kindness. You are not ready.